All right, we're back. Welcome back to the Weightlifting House podcast. Max and I want to kind of talk about the different types of programs, almost make this like a guidebook to program types.
Yeah.
The inspiration for this was at our most recent AI training camp. We had some questions about what should I do next? Should I do a technique focus? Should I do some bodybuilding, strength? Should I focus on my leg strength, my squatting, or should I just run a competition-focused program?
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if we should actually start with a competition-focused program, because I think people see the name of it and they think, only if I'm doing a competition should I run this, when really what the competition-focused program is this is a weightlifting program.
Yeah,
the truest
exactly.
weightlifting program.
Yeah.
So do you want to just overview what that type of program is?
Yeah, I mean, a competition-focused program is essentially just biasing everything towards the end of the cycle. You're going to go and test your maxes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of the best way to approach, like, trying to get to the highest level you can, as far as, like, I want to, take all the strength I built or this technique I've developed, or I've been training for a bit and I want to sort of see where I'm at.
Mm.
Competition program focuses are just basically sort of isolating the classic lifts more towards the end of the program, ramping up intensity in a linear way so that at the end of the program you're at peak shape and you're familiar with those heavy lifts.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a little bit of a strength component early on and some technique, obviously mixed in at all times, but the goal of a competition focus is to just peak you for that test day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good program to be running most of the time.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing something where you need to focus on technique or strength, you should be running a competition program, in that generally 8 to 12 week range.
Yeah, I feel like throughout my training career, I basically exclusively ran what would look like a competition program.
Yeah.
And they would be 12 weeks long. There would be, as you mentioned, there are phases of higher volume work, and there are phases of more strength focused. But the goal of the program was that you're going to set a new record in the snatch and the clean and jerk.
Yeah, exactly.
I never really did what we'll talk about, which was taking a phase from within that and making that the entire program.
Yeah, exactly.
Which maybe I kind of wish I had done, but I could never get out of the habit of I just care about my snatch and clean and jerk, because that's all I would have ever. I couldn't imagine focusing 12 weeks on just my squat or on gaining muscle mass or just my smoothing out my pull or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But in general, I mean, the competition focused program is just the weightlifting program.
Yeah.
That's if you repeated an 8-week version or a 12-week version of that over and over again, you would just slowly increase your squat, slowly get a bit bigger, if you're trying to get bigger or whatever, gain muscle mass and put kilos on your snatch and your clean and jerk.
You can think of it as like the balanced approach to a weightlifting training.
Right.
Where
if
you don't have any major weaknesses or areas you need to like really focus in on, that's how you should train. It's going to have different phases, each kind of proportional to what the length of the program is.
Yeah.
And then, this kind of focus on a peak at the end.
Yeah. And I think the value of moving to a different type of program, which we can now sort of go to, is often just not doing the same thing over and over again.
Yes.
Like if you've just competed and you've run a 12-week weightlifting only competition style program, sometimes you want to pick a different focus just to change the monotonous style of weightlifting. And I think then trying to work out which of those you do is important. I would never have gone onto a technique focused program. For me, I felt like I'm lifting high percentages of my best strength numbers. This is a waste for me. I need to gain muscle mass or squat more or improve my general strength. But those 4, if you include technique, that's where it's like, what should I do next? And I would have thought you're going to pick either technique or bodybuilding as like the 2 furthest out, depending on what type of athlete you are.
Yeah, and you can think about it like you're going to fall to one of 2 camps. You're either going to be someone who has a lot of strength and power and maybe can't utilize it all, or you're somebody who is really efficient, but they just need to sort of move to the next level of strength.
Yeah,
and so you pick accordingly. If you're efficient and you move well and you're like you said, making high percentage of lifts and you're consistent, then maybe you start with something like a bodybuilding early on, right after a program that peaks. So you have a little bit of a break. You get a little more focus on general training, you feel good, your joints feel better, you kind of do something that's a little bit more off-season style,
Yeah.
then maybe push into like a strength focus,
Yeah.
or squat focus. If you're really weak in the legs and you really need to focus on your squat, then that's where you use that. But if you're just kind of needing to drive yourself to that next level of physical strength, then a strength focus, then back to competition, and get into the mix.
Competition has to be the meat and potatoes. And you'll probably find there are some people who will almost just alternate strength comp,
exactly.
or technique, strength comp, or whatever. So I think something interesting for you to answer is, when you do these other focuses, you have to be willing to let other qualities get worse for a time being. During the bodybuilding focus program, which on WEIGHTLIFTIng.ai is probably the most popular one, how during the early portions of that, the bulk of it, where you're doing a lot of pressing and rowing and curls and Bulgarian split squats, and you're trying to physically grow muscle, how much should you be willing to how much should you be okay with your snatch and clean and jerk not being, PR numbers?
So what I would say is kind of the beauty of the way the system, the app works, is that you want to be okay that those numbers are not going to move up.
Yeah.
But the goal would be to say, the system's going to reduce snatch and clean and jerk to some degree. You might say, okay, this feels like I'm holding on to what I've done, but maybe I need to bump up the intensities during some of the workouts, so you can add some sets that are a little heavier, or you might add another session of snatch or clean and jerk if you feel like you're recovering fine. And that gives you enough exposure to sort of hold on to that. If you're really far out from competition, it's okay to let those qualities, the snatch and clean and jerk, drop off a bit.
Yeah.
They're not going to disappear permanently. You're just going to get out of touch with it, is what I would say. It's going to feel more rusty. Technique with heavy weights isn't going to be there, but at the same time, you're not focused on that.
Yeah.
Your goal here is to build some muscle and move up a weight class, maybe.
Yeah.
If you really get nervous and you get a little bit like, oh, this is like, I need to touch these weights, then the system, you can add that in. You can add in a few heavier singles after your main volume work on snatch and clean and jerk. Go up 5-10 kilos and hit some challenging lifts, and then move on. And
you could even turn on a big Friday.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
it would just give you a couple days slightly easier and peak you for it.
Yeah, every couple of days, or every couple of weeks. Every couple of weeks, you could turn on a big Friday and just have a heavy session and get some exposure, and that's going to keep you in touch with it, so that when you do go to the strength and competition focus, you can kind of ease back into that better.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's potential for being a horrendous analogy here, but it's kind of like, if you're doing the competition phase, you're just making cakes from start to finish over and over again. And doing the hypertrophy or something like that, bodybuilding phase, it's kind of like you're mixing the egg and the flour for 10 cakes. And after you've done it, you're like, oh my God, I haven't even put one in the oven yet. But suddenly you can put 10 in the oven.
Yeah, it's like this is the Great British Baking Challenge. Is that the show?
The British Bake Off.
The British Bake Off, yeah.
It's an institution.
It's
not something I've really ever watched, it has to be said. But I believe it's an export now over to the USA.
Yeah, I've seen clips from it.
Yeah.
And it's usually like the host making fun of one of the contestants. Some smarmy comment or something. Yeah.
Well, we've often said that your humor style is a lot more British in many ways than it is American, I think.
Just very dry.
It's dry, it's sarcastic.
Yeah.
It's way less on the nose.
Yeah.
I think American humor is more just like, it's not slapstick, but it's closer to the just, you call someone a mean thing.
Yeah.
Whereas British humor is a lot more,
you say something nice.
Say
that's
something
actually
really
mean.
nice with just this tiny slither of, wait, did he mean that? And then you dwell on it all day and you realize he was just saying something horrible.
Yeah. It's the best kind of humor.
I like it. Yeah. It's multi-layered.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's like I used to always say to Josh in the podcast that he's on the first rung of humor, the ladder of humor. Like he would make like fart and like wee jokes. It's like, okay, good. Or he'd make like a dick joke. It's like, okay, you're on the first rung. I see you down there. But you've got a long way to go. Okay, so yeah, the bodybuilding one is obviously the one that a lot of people in this day and age kind of love, because it's amazing once we started doing the AI, you're able to reach a much larger group of people who want to train weightlifting. And you move out a concentric ring of these concentric circles, and you realize how many people want to look jacked and do some weightlifting. And that captures them really nicely.
Yeah.
And then almost the goal, I think, is like, can we make them think, I'd love to do a squat cycle.
Yeah.
I'd love to see if I can improve my squat, and then just do a competition one.
Yeah.
And just see what I can snatch.
Just
and
kind
clinch
of
up,
keep
move
pulling them in. Yeah.
Yeah. Move them
I
in.
think one of the goals with your 1.0 app and what we're going to do in 2.0 is being able to give people a lot more choice and flexibility and control to sort of get to the place where they're doing weightlifting in the way they want to do it.
Yeah,
which I think is something that a lot of people get into weightlifting. They see a top lifter, they mimic their program because they want to be like them.
Mm-hmm.
But then they might miss a lot of stuff that's like, well, I wanted to, I like looking good, or I like feeling this way, or I like being a little bit stronger here. So giving that flexibility to say, yeah, you can have both. You can have a bit of this bodybuilding focus, but also the lifts, and not have to like write an entire program yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So we've given you this control to do that. Giving you a little more of the guidance now, I think, is helpful to say, like, if you want to get good at weightlifting, you can't run the bodybuilding weightlifting program for 12 months a year.
Yeah.
That's not going to take you there. Mm-hmm. But it's the kind of thing where
especially when you reduce the frequency of the snatch clinch to once per week.
Yeah, once per week, and then
that's
maybe
what I'm on right now.
add a few extra curls and presses and stuff. It's like you want to use this in the right proportions, and I think in general, it's like just think of it like you did, right? It's building the building blocks for future progress. Makes my hypertrophy, get bigger, stronger, then start to kind of shape that into more snatch and clean and jerk results. Yeah,
it seems like from the discussions we've had recently, where you're talking about all the work that you and the team have been doing on 2.0, the kind of granularity or individuality that you can get on these new programs will be amazing, where you can kind of, instead of saying, okay, I want to do a bodybuilding program, you could say, I want to do weightlifting, but I would also like my shoulders to get a little bit more jacked, or whatever. Or you will be able to break down the specifics of the technique, and it will be designed to stop you from jumping forward.
Yeah,
a little bit more, with a focus on a sudden bit of strength if you want. Yeah, like it gets way more like pick your own adventure type of thing.
Well, the goal here, and to kind of talk a little about 2.0 without sort of like, going super into detail, a lot of what we were limited by is like, what can we get from a user? And we can use that, like, no system is magic. Nothing can know something it's not able to know. So I don't know you jumped forward, right? What we've gone to now, and our goal is to basically create, an AI coach. Right. And an AI coach would need a few things. It needs to be able to know who you are so it can write the right program, which we can do right now. You can tell us about yourself. We can learn that, your ratios, these kind of things, and then build a program. But it also needs to understand feedback. It needs to be given something like, how did that work go? What did your sets feel like? How did these things go? We do that in 1.0 to some degree with, the sort of rating system. So that's a good, quick, objective, like, how hard was that? Yeah. It was a 5 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10 or whatever. You can give us a quick rundown. What we need, though, is the ability to see the lift and extract information from what we see. So a coach needs some kind of vision component. And then a coach needs to be able to understand language. When you say something to a coach, when I coach people, the first question I ask them every day in the gym is, how do you feel? Yeah. And they give me an answer. And a lot of times it's just, basic, I'm sore, I'm this or that. So those final two elements are what we've kind of integrated to 2.0, is the ability to see the lifts and then the ability to understand language. Yeah. So natural language.
And when you say see the lifts, and I know we're going to do another podcast to get more specific about this, but we don't mean that there's going to be a real life coach sat there on the other side of the phone, FaceTiming in. Yeah. It'll be a computer vision component. So we have, the ability to input a video, and we'll, extract some data from that video. We extract some kinematic information, so how you're moving, and then some kinetic information, things like velocity and whatnot. And, we'll run programs on top of that information to determine what we can. So we
we learn what we can from the information we have now, and as the system gets better, we can extract more. So maybe, version, the initial version of this beta sort of vision component might be able to tell, like, if you're jumping forward or if you're too slow under the bar or whatever. As we get better, we'll learn, more and more about videos. We'll extract more and more data. As models get better, we get better. And so our goal is to basically be able to say, hey, send us a video or upload a video in the onboarding. Oh, okay, you did these 3 things. Do you agree with those? Those are your errors. Cool. We'll build a program around that.
Yeah.
And the more little finite things we know, the better the program can be, right? So we can, dial in exercises exactly for those issues and kind of build things that way. But 1.0 is still doing a lot of these things from the perspective that we're taking feedback from an athlete, we're processing that and using it to make determinations about loading and adjusting the training program. And we have the program focuses as well that give us, we're probably getting 80% of the way there. Right? We're able to say, this is a bodybuilding program. It's going to be balanced for different muscle groups that we know are important for weightlifting and some that, just make you look good.
Yeah.
And then we can also dial back the intensities and volumes on the lifts. And it's there. It's just that we're trying to get even further there. Does that make sense?
I think it's going to become a lot more. We used this phrase a while ago to promote the AI, but it's going to actually be that. It's the whole coach in your pocket thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think when you talk about some of this vision stuff, you can tell that you live in Silicon Valley, if you know what I mean. But the most, in layman terms, it will give you an accurate form check.
Yeah, that's the goal, right?
Basically what you're training, and you can talk to it and say things, but also you can just film yourself, and it will give you the form check that Max would try to give you if he was there.
Yeah.
That's the goal, and to make that available for everybody on the app, and have thousands of people eventually who are getting high-level form checks during training, which not only just tells you stuff, but then changes the programming potentially in real time based on how you look, just like a coach. It's going to be kind of insane.
Yeah.
It's funny because, obviously, I'm over here in the UK and you're over there in the USA, so I just hear all the stuff. I almost need to really see it to believe it.
Yeah.
And you've told me, yesterday we ran a test and we put this video in and it did this, this, and this. I'm like, wow, that's cool, but I just need to see it.
Yeah. We will. Yeah. We'll show you.
Well, you're going to be back soon.
Yeah, when I come back, we'll have everything together. A lot of stuff we've done because it's all development. Yeah. It's in
it's like simulators on laptops, sort of thing.
Kind of. A lot of it will be like raw code where you're
right.
Here's the confidence rating of each phase of the lift, and I'll even ask well, what's what, and then I'll get shown like a video, and the video will be a snatch. Under the video, there'll be the ground truth, what we know to be true each phase, and then below that, what the AI predicted, and they'll the phases will line up.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 99% confidence on these phases, and so it's always funny to me because a lot of it is we're not at that place where it's spit out some polished interface for this particular test. We just want to keep iterating and training and rebuilding. And so it's I'm always in that same spot of you where I'm like, okay, this is great, this is cool. Yeah. And then now we have to decide how are we going to display this information to somebody? What do we want to put on the screen? What do we want to put on the video? Do we want to have a watermark? Do we want to have some kind of lines on the screen? Do we do it in text form? And so there's a lot of that question mark as far as the best way to present it. Yeah. But our goal is to get to the point where you get, the most easily digestible summary. Yeah. So let's say maybe it's a text form. You'll put a lift in. It'll spit out a bunch of tags hey, you jumped forward and you swung the bar out or something. And then those would be maybe clickable links where you could open up and see a little description of oh, okay, here's what I should try to do to avoid jumping forward.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's so many iterations, and I'm hesitant to say exactly how we're going to do it in the end. Because it's we don't want to, we want to say something now and then in 2 months there's a new model that we can use that does voice, and then you get real-time voice feedback where, it just tells you what to do differently. But But the goal is, we're moving in that direction where
Yeah.
you're going to get much more granular focus on
Frictionless
it.
coaching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So let's go back to the specific programs quickly, because I think it might be worth giving a few almost like benchmarks as to know what to do. I would have thought that the bodybuilding focus one, generally that's just if you want to do some bodybuilding, you should pick it. Is there a case where you see someone and they're just so skinny and you think, if you want to snatch and clean and jerk better, you actually should run this program?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
There is definitely, I would definitely say there are people that maybe come into the sport. Well, your words, not mine.
Okay.
I would say there's definitely people that would benefit from just doing some general training.
Yeah.
Like if you've maybe never lifted or you came from...
Yeah, you never went to the gym at school or university or
and,
whatever.
maybe you're in your 30s or something and you start and you have a desk job and you never did anything. I would start there because just having some general physical strength and some more size is going to make learning the lifts so much easier. Because when you learn, as we know, you're going to miss. And you're going to kind of struggle with lifts. And sometimes you miss because you don't have the ability to sort of fight with the bar.
Yeah.
And if you can't fight with it, it's hard to kind of sort out how to get it done, if that makes sense. Like when you and I started, we probably just went in and tried a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And you might make some lifts, miss some lifts. But if you're a young, kind of athletic guy, you can sort of, kind of fumble your way around for a bit until you start to get the hang of it, The fastest way to learn free throws is to just start, doing free throws. And you have to miss that. So you have to have a little bit of like, ruggedness, robustness to your body to be able to tolerate that.
Right.
So I'd say for sure, if you're starting and you've never done anything in the gym, the bodybuilding weightlifting program is a great place to start.
Okay. Okay, so the squat program, is there at the recent camp, there were some guys where it's like, obviously don't do a squat program because that is not a limiter. And with others, it kind of felt like maybe.
Yeah.
Is there if you're getting pinned at maximal cleans, then that might be
Yeah, I would say if you're the kind of person who struggles a lot with leg strength, like one, it's hard to develop for you, or that you maybe are in a place where your lifting is very efficient and your legs are maybe a little behind in that, like, if I just got my legs a lot stronger, I'd make way more clean and jerks. Then go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
But also, if you're somebody who maybe your shoulders are beat up or your elbows are beat up,
you want to take a break.
Yeah, you need to just back off. Then the squatting program is great because it basically removes snatch and clean and jerk.
Yeah.
And you can kind of add on top of it what you need. So start as a foundation with the squat program, then add in 1 time a week snatching if you need, 1 time a week clean and jerks, and maybe some pulls. And so you can kind of use it as a foundation to sort of build on what you need as like I'd say an off-season kind of program.
Right. I guess it can refresh your excitement and passion as well.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just like, I've been snatching clean and jerking for so long, I really want to get a squat PR over the next 12 weeks, and I can just change my focus. And
exactly.
The technique one then, I think there are, how much within the technique program, how much are you still developing strength and stuff?
So the main thing with the technique program is, in order to focus on your technique, you're going to need a bigger variety of exercises because you're going to want to potentially attack a weakness from multiple angles. Just doing, say, like, just hang snatches. If you have a problem, just one time a week hang snatches isn't going to fix that. Every time we see someone improve technique, it's because they saturate the program with movements that are all from a variety of perspectives, focusing on a particular set of issues, right? From that perspective, though, if you're going to add variety, you're going to have to take the intensity down, and you want to increase the volume. So the technique focus does these. It drops intensity, and it focuses on a larger volume of lower intensity work because you get more exposure to the lifts that you're going to benefit from, and you can do more reps. The more reps you do of things that are going to fix your technique, obviously the better it's going to get.
So you're still squatting.
You're still squatting, pulling. It's almost like the technique focus is very similar to what you'd see the earlier phases of a competition focus. Yeah. It's just expanded in its scope. It's got more variety, larger volumes, more moderate intensities. And it's designed to sort of say, hey, I've got some issues. I'm going to focus on technique.
Yep.
These issues I'm going to drive a lot more attention to. Maybe you power clean more than you clean.
Right.
So it's going to focus way more on block snatches or block cleans or hang cleans or whatever. And you're going to do more of them and more variations of them.
Cool. And then the final one, the strength block. My assumption is when we see the top weightlifters, when you and I go to these competitions, they're basically just running the competition programs.
Yeah.
But the way that they got there and the position that basically we're all in is we might move almost as well as some of these top lifters, but we are 100 kilos down in every strength exercise.
Yeah.
And the way they got there was partly talent, and they didn't need to do as much work on strength, but also a lot more strength work. So this seems like the one outside of the competition that perhaps you would actually recommend the most to people to alternate with.
Yeah, and it's really similar to the technique focus. What you're doing is essentially dropping the classic lifts back a little bit and replacing that volume with squatting, pulling, upper body strength.
Yeah.
And the goal there is to drive more volume towards those exercises, which are going to impact your strength qualities more than your speed and power qualities. So squatting is going to go up, pulling is going to go up, pressing and whatnot is going to increase.
Right.
And it's really done in a way where you're, at the end of that program should be physically stronger than you were. Your snatch and clean and jerk may be impacted immediately by that. It may require a bit of, competition sort of training to get those numbers to come up. But you want to end those programs with some definite physical changes in strength.
Okay, that makes sense. And then maybe we just run through in terms of length. What is an adequate sort of dosage in terms of length of a program to run to get benefit, but not do it for so long that you really start seeing a degradation in other things?
I would say that 6 week mark is kind of the minimum. You can do something for 4.
What's the shortest we can do on the AI?
It's 4.
4 weeks.
Yeah, so you could do a 4 week program.
Yeah, or 20.
Yeah, or 20, right?
Which is probably a bit long.
The 4 week program is kind of more maybe you want an off season, or you want you're gonna do 4 weeks of bodybuilding after a comp.
Yeah. Because
you just need to kind of take a break and figure out what your next meet is or something.
Yeah, and your knees and hips are beat up.
Yeah,
and you just want to curl.
Right, and so it mostly comes back to curling.
Yeah,
Most of this gets back to how much can you spend time curling.
Well, that's why he was called Karlovic.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
he was actually previously had a different name.
Yeah. That's it's a little known fact actually. There's that dry humor that we all love.
Yeah. I mean that was a bit silly.
But yeah, so then I would say if 4 weeks is just a minimum, call that 4 weeks is a good break.
Yeah.
You're going to switch focuses just for fun for a break. Then, let's say 6 weeks is probably the sort of minimum range you want to do to get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
But I would say, that 8 or 10 week mark is definitely probably the longest you want to run a specific program. If you have, let's say the bodybuilding and weightlifting or technique focus is 10 weeks because it's just not going to get heavy enough by the end.
Right.
So you stay too light for too long. It just takes longer to get comfortable with heavy weights again.
Yeah.
So I'd say bodybuilding and technique focus, 10 weeks is kind of that sweet spot for the length.
Yeah.
But on the long side, strength and competition could be run much longer than 10 because you're going a lot heavier.
Yeah.
If your strength is increasing after 10 weeks, you're going to be fine moving back to the lifts. They'll be rusty at first, but they'll come around quickly.
Yeah. And squat?
And then squat would be the kind of thing where you'd run it as long as you want to run it. If you got an injury using it, obviously, that's going to dictate that. For just squatting, because you're not doing any of the lifts, I would say, keep it to maybe 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Because if you get away from the lifts too long, you're going to kind of need to start adding them in. But you could run a squat program for 12 weeks and maybe at week 6, 7, 8, start adding in snatch and clean and jerk.
Yeah. Last question then from me, and then we should probably wrap up, is if you picked a 6 week program, is there a phasic, how long do you need the specific, the squat or the technique or the hypertrophy program for there to be mesocycles within it?
So it'll split. Yeah, the app splits those programs up based on the length anyway. So if you have a 6 week program, you'll probably get 2 3 week blocks.
Okay.
if you've got, an 8 or 10, it'll break it into like a 4 and 4
Yeah.
or maybe a 5 and 4.
Yeah.
And so, it'll just chop those up into
Okay.
different length blocks to fit the time frame.
So you don't even need to worry about that.
No,
really,
that's accounted for, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Well, hopefully we have maybe explained what the different types of weightlifting programs are. And they kind of, at some point we will be able to get more granular with the AI, where you can do more like leg strength or like pulling focused or whatever. Sure. But these are the 5 main types that you'll see, not just at the AI, but just kind of all around that. These are pretty traditional weightlifting type programs. So hopefully you understand more about how they are separated, how and when and why you might use one of them.
And if you have questions too, if you have more specific questions, then drop questions in the Discord. Say, hey, I want to run this program. Yeah. How long do you think? And give some information, and we can help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So weightlifting.ai, we'll put a link to that down below. And if you're not signed up, come join the team. We'd love to have you.